here today with the U Hype podcast, and I'm with Mr. Buck today. How are you?
I am excellent. Happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Southwest Missouri, moved here in high school, graduated from Union back when it was a tiny little spot in the street, and I played basketball at Northeastern, got my degree from there, started teaching. I got out of teaching for a little while and realized it was a huge mistake, and came back. I've taught on and off for about 35 years, so, and I'm here now.
All right, and you did mention you moved here when you were in high school. What grade? Did you move in like the middle of the year?
I moved in the summer before my senior year.
Mm-hmm. And was that a hard transition for you since you had to?
Well, in a way, yes, but I'm kind of one of those outgoing people that, and if you talk to people around you, probably will hear that I will talk to a wall and have a conversation. So it really wasn't a hard transition for me. I met people, got to know people, and so I enjoyed it. I came from a little tiny town of 350 people to the city of Tulsa, and to a much bigger school to me, even though it wasn't very big at the time, just 600 kids here at the high school. So.
And what are 3 words you would use to describe your high school self?
Oh my goodness. Athlete, nerd, in a positive way, I think. And I guess you would say, one of those good kids. Just did what I was supposed to do.
And what sports did you play?
I played baseball and basketball. The town I came from didn't have football. They were a tiny school, and by the time I got here, senior year wasn't really a time to start with a new sport with that much contact and a scholarship looming, so I didn't want to risk that. So.
And you called yourself a nerd. What classes did you take?
Oh, come on. I had the psychology class, the upper level math classes, the upper level science classes. I was one I always want to know. So yeah, I was kind of the nerdy kid. I liked that stuff, and I loved Star Trek. So come on, what can I say?
And who's your favorite character in Star Trek?
Oh, Spock, of course. I mean, the logical guy that knew all the answers and didn't let anything affect him, that was me.
And what's your favorite memory from high school?
Wow. I would say probably when I came to Union, one of the things that struck me was how open and friendly and welcoming this place was. And where I grew up could be kind of clannish because most of the people there had been there. You knew their aunts, uncles, grandparents, and so on. And when I came here, they just welcomed the new kid, and it was one of those. I remember very first game I played basketball against Jenks, and my cousin played with our team, and after we beat Jenks, he came flying at me and almost knocked me down. He said, "We beat Jenks." I said, "Okay." I didn't really understand what that meant, but I put it in context now and I get it.
And did you ever get in trouble being in high school? Okay.
Senior skip day has never been an official skip day. And you see, my mother worked at in the district, and I decided I was going to take that day. And I told you I was kind of a nerd, so when I didn't show up, everybody knew about it. And I ended up having a flat tire about 1.5 miles down the street. Police pulled over, wondered why I wasn't in school. Now, come on, I was 17 years old enough that, you can kind of make your decisions yourself, I thought. And so they called back to the school. It was in a day when the police would do that. So long story short, my senior skip day was about 1.5 hours long, and then that ended. So, but fortunately, I'd had such a good record, they didn't really hold it against me too much, but principal was not happy.
Where were you headed to on senior skip day?
Well, my girlfriend and I, who is now my wife, by the way, we decided that was a great day to head to the lake. And it would have been had I made it out of town.
Let's see. Were you involved in any, like, I know you played sports, but what about like any leadership positions?
Okay, you remember I told you I was kind of a nerd. I was also
Yes.
in National Honor Society. I was an officer in National Honor Society. Most of the things at that point, I was kind of the new kid, so it wasn't one where you had the year before to get ready and run for offices and things. So I really wasn't heavily involved that way, but the people that were here were some really good people. Counselors and everything got me involved in doing some things and working with the student council. I wasn't on the student council, but it was kind of at that time loosely enough organized that you could get people to volunteer and do some things. So I did some things that way too.
And are there any current teachers at Union that you went to high school with or even
Oh, absolutely.
taught?
Steve Moran was a little punk freshman when I was here, and Steve's been around a long time. We're both kind of old Union people, and it's fun to reminisce with that. So, but yeah, he was here. He was an athlete and smart guy, just like he is now. Everybody knows Mr. Moran's really smart, but he was here and had the same reputation then. So.
And you did mention you were involved in sports and stuff like that. What would you say to someone who's, in high school right now but isn't involved?
I always tell every student I come across, you decide what kind of high school career you have. If you want to be completely uninvolved and unattached to the school, your high school career is not going to be really as fulfilling as it could be because you just don't make connections with people or with the school or anything else. I would say get involved in everything you possibly can because you're going to meet people, you're going to be involved, you're going to have some commitment that you'll have, and those things are valuable later on. I mean, you just, in work, in just your relationships with people, and some of those connections that you're going to make in those clubs, you're going to work with those people in future. You may even ask for jobs from those people, and it would be good to have already had that connection. So, yeah, make it what you want.
And what is your favorite thing about Union?
Oh my gosh. Above all else is the diversity that we have here is just a microcosm for life. I mean, you have every ethnic background. You have so many different people here. One of our 2017 graduates, when I went to the Mr. and Miss Union dinner with them after the coronation, he turned and we asked them what they liked. And he said, every week I meet at least one person from another culture. And, when you learn how to do that at this age, your adult career just makes it so much easier to adapt and work with people.
All right, and I heard something about you. Would you like to tell us what your favorite genre of music is?
Oh my goodness. I listen to everything from the old blues artist Robert Johnson from the 1930s all the way up to, oh my gosh, AJR and things like that. My favorite, I'm an old classic rock guy with blues roots. I sit around. If you ever walk into my office when I'm just in there, you're going to hear that on my computer. It's just part of me.
And what would you say is your favorite song?
Oh wow, that's a hard one to say. I would say my favorite artist is Eric Clapton. He's an old quote unquote guitar god from back when I was a kid. I've listened to him since I was, let's say about 10 years old or so, and he does a song called Change the World. And I love that song because of the lyrics, but it's got a great melody to it. And it's between that and a song called I've Got a Rock and Roll Heart, which is, I would say, is my personal anthem. So.
And you did mention that you and your wife both went to Union?
Yes,
All
we
right.
did.
Did you have any children that graduated from Union?
I have 4 kids that were 13-year students. We have a long history here. My wife started in school here in 1966, and we both graduated from here. My mother retired from here after 26 years working in the service center at the finance office. And then, like I said, I had the 4 kids that graduated from here, 13-year students. First one graduated in '97, and the last one graduated in 2014. So we're pretty much steeped in union.
And so, what was the hardest transition for you going from high school to college?
Yeah, by far. The hardest thing I had to do, again, I told you I was kind of one of those nerdy kids that wanted to know everything. And when I was in high school, I kind of did, and it came pretty easy to me. And the transition into college was, I had to study, and I wasn't used to that.
Yeah.
It was like, but I'm Bob, I don't have to do this. And when my professor said, well, it's either that or think about taking the class again, I figured out, okay, I've got to break down and study. And with a math degree, the math got really hard really quick. And so I realized that, yeah, I do in fact need to study, and I do in fact need to take notes. And, you know, I need to ask when God help me, don't understand something. But yeah, that was a shock to me.
And how long have you been at Union?
I was at Union for 4 years, quite some time ago, and then now this is starting my 25th year back since I've been here.
And how did you start off?
I started off as a 23-year-old kid and was teaching at the old, what do they call the junior high, which doesn't even exist at Union anymore, but it was 7th, 8th, and 9th grades. And I coached football and basketball and taught math, obviously. One of my stellar students was a guy named John Federline that has been at Union forever, was a principal, and now is one of the directors over at the Service Center. He was one of my students, and a few years later, his wife was one of my students. So, yeah, that's where we started. Then I came back in '95 and helped Richard Storm start the alternative school, and I spent 20 years over there. I also coached the varsity girls soccer team here for about 9 years. So.
And what is your why?
Well, where I grew up, the one thing that I always remember as a kid was there was always somebody, you know, and it was whether it was coaching baseball, helping me through that, in school, there was always that somebody. And I realized at some point that I felt that need to be somebody. And so my why is kind of along that vein. I feel like I kind of owe it to pay back kind of what I've been given. So that's where my motivation to do what I do is, because, I mean, to face it, I could retire anytime, but I just don't want to because I love what I do. And I love being around students. I've done it, well, I told somebody the other day, I said, when we start school this year, this will mark my 40th anniversary of my first classroom. So I've been doing this a long time, and I just enjoy doing it. I enjoy working with students.
And did you always want to teach or be an administrator?
Well, originally I was going to be a CPA and make tons of money. And I realized that wasn't who I was. And so I started teaching, and within the first, 3-4 years, they were saying, well, when are you going to become an administrator? And I said, never. Not going to happen. And so I fast forward, go in. As I move forward, Richard Storm, as I mentioned earlier, said, he said, you really ought to get in and kind of help more kids than you can help in your classroom. And at that time I thought, but this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to help these students. This is my focus. And he said, but how many more could you work with if you were in a different position? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yeah, other people are always right. So I decided at that point, I said, I probably should do that. So 33 years after I got my bachelor's degree, I got my master's degree and worked forward. By the way, I wouldn't recommend that pathway to everybody, but it was my path. So.
And why were you hesitant to become an administrator?
Well, again, I like the relationship that you have with students in the classroom every single day. You see them, their good days, their bad days, you can help them through the bad times. And in math, I always felt, okay, I have a little bit of a complex when it comes to teaching math that I can teach it to anybody. And when somebody says, well, I just don't get math, it's a challenge. That's, I can get you to, you haven't seen me yet. And so I felt that pull strongly between that and the coaching. It was like, I've got to do this. And the older I got, the more I just saw a bigger picture. And it became a little more clear that, actually, I really could help more if I do it a different way.
And then what's probably the most stressful part about being an administrator?
Oh, wow. Well, other than Dr. Hartzler telling you that 100% of your students are going to graduate college and career ready, other than that, I would say probably the most stressful is when you've got a situation where a student's really made a poor choice and you've got to get a hold of a parent that you know is not going to respond positively to it, either whether it's towards me, which honestly, I don't let a lot of that bother me because I know it's not me, it's the situation. But the side of it that becomes stressful is how much of it is going to be directed at the student and how overbearing is that going to be. And so it always kind of concerns me that a parent will overreact to the student. I mean, because let's face it, every situation we can work through if we do it properly. And it's not really what's happened, it's what you do going forward that matters. So let's get to that part of it and not make this something that it shouldn't be. And so that part of it, I think, is probably the most stressful part of it.
And outside of school, what do you like to do on your free time?
Anybody that's ever stepped foot in my office or listened to me talk for 5 minutes knows that I'm a St. Louis Cardinal fan, dyed in the wool. I bleed Cardinal red and always will. I've followed them since I was just a kid sitting on my grandpa's front porch listening to a radio broadcast of the games. Okay, again, I'm kind of nerdy. I DVR those games so that I can make sure and see them. If I should happen to, heaven forbid, miss an inning, I can go back and I can see it. So I do that. I've got grandkids that I love to follow. I've got one that just graduated from high school. It's hard to believe. So this year we spent a lot of it going to his basketball and baseball and football games. So, but other than that, I've got dogs. I have a border collie that I run agility courses with. So, on the weekends you might see us out there jumping and going through tunnels and going over things. But I'm really heavily involved with that. So.
And have you ever been to a Cardinals game?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the stadium that they tore down to build a new one, I was in it when it was the first year it was open back in the 60s. And I make it a point to at least go to a couple of games every year. It's kind of been my tradition, and I can't break that because like I said, I'm just a true Cardinal fan.
And would you say baseball is your favorite sport, or what's your favorite sport to watch?
That's hard to say. I've been around baseball since I was about 5 or 6 years old. My family is very steeped in baseball. That's been kind of our go-to. But my kids picked up soccer, which, oh my goodness, my oldest one came home. I told him, you are going to do something. You pick it or I pick it. And she picked soccer. And I couldn't believe it. I can't stand this sport. I can't do it. Well, again, fast forward, her coach quits. I start coaching, and I coached for 20 years, refereed it for 26 years. I watched the English Premier League on weekends all winter long and on the whole season. So it's almost a toss-up now between soccer and baseball. I would say, yeah, baseball gets the edge, but soccer has gotten into my blood.
And what's something you would like to tell us about yourself? Just a fun fact or something you think us students don't know about you?
Oh, what would be a fun fact about me? Probably, well, I would say probably a fun fact with me might be with me at Union is that a lot of these schools are named after people in Union's history, like, you know, Jarman Elementary is named after Dr. Jarman, a former superintendent, and Darnaby's Jim Darnaby that was a board president. And of those four people, Bovers, Jarman, Grove, and Darnaby, I actually knew all of those people and go back. So they're more than just names on a wall. They're actually faces from my past. In fact, Dr. Jarman's probably the reason I became a math teacher. He directed me in that way. So, yeah, that might be just as good a fun fact as any.
And you are a principal for the class of 2020,
yes.
right? So what's some advice you'd like to give to us seniors?
Oh my goodness. Again, that senior year, I know the tendency is to want to take off on senior sneak day or skip day and go to the lake with your girlfriend. But, you know, your senior year really sets up your college career. You know, those that take it really easy during the senior year, the freshman year in college becomes more difficult typically. So just keep in mind, this may be the end of high school days, but is so just the beginning of your life. Everything from here is preparation for what you're going to do when you, as I used to say, get your big boy and big girl jobs. And so, you know, make sure it's one that you want to do, make sure it's something you're interested in, something you like, because like I said, I've been doing this for 40 years and I can't imagine doing anything else, and I can't imagine stopping. So make it something that you like and something that you're passionate about. And two, enjoy that senior year because you're still young.
And then, well, before you were a principal and a teacher, when you were in high school, did you have any jobs that you, I don't know, did you have any part-time jobs?
Oh, I had some very glamorous jobs. I used to carry out groceries in a grocery store. I did that for about 2 or 3 years. I actually worked in maintenance when I came to Union. I actually worked in maintenance in the summers between, and so I've actually worked on a lot of these buildings that are out here and everything. Yeah, that was a pretty glamorous job. Pulling all the toilets at Briar Glen so that you could put down new flooring was, I mean, it's a character builder. But yeah, those were, but there's some good days. I wouldn't change them for anything.
All right, and before we go, is there anything you want to add, say, tell the
Oh my
classes?
goodness. I really hope that you guys love and cherish the opportunities that you have at Union, because I can tell you that there aren't a lot of places that offer a lot of the things that we do. And I hope that you take advantage of that. I hope you've met some friends that'll be lifelong friends. I hope that you've found some teachers and some administrators, hopefully, and you understand that those people are there to help you now. But I still get calls from people that graduated 15 years to 20 years ago that I still stay in touch with and can still from time to time offer some help. And so, you know, those connections, those relationships that you make, follow those up and keep them strong, because they're good ones.
All right, and lastly, before we go, I just want to thank you, because thanks to you, I'm able to be in U High, because I did not meet the requirements to be in Ms. Fisher's class, and you put in a good word for me, and here we are. So thank you.
Well, you are welcome. There's certain times when you just see that student fits and has the potential to do what they can do, and so we definitely determined it was a good fit for you.
I'm
so
glad.
that was awesome.
All right, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.